Hi guys, I've got a 1988 Jeep Comanche. I've totally swapped over to a 1998 drivetrain. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the fuel system. Now the thing to note is a 1998 has a single fuel line coming up, and there's no return line, and it is 49 psi is what it's supposed to be. The 88 Jeep Comanche had a return line, and it was somewhere in the 30s for the fuel pressure. So there's a lot of different options you can choose to do. You can go with an aftermarket tank. You can go with Dakota tank. You can modify the Comanche tank. So I'll tell you what I did. I used a stock Jeep Comanche tank and fuel pump, and I put a Cherokee sending unit in it so the resistance is correct for the gauge. And I used a fuel filter with an internal pressure regulator, and this is out of a 2002 Jeep Grand Cherokee. Jeep Grand Cherokee, the way the fuel pump was set up and the regulator, this was mounted on the unibody frame rail, and it regulates to 49 psi. So what I did is I tapped in here. I've got my return line. I've got my return line to the return of the pressure regulator, and I've got my pressure line to the pressure side. This is sort of mocked up. I want to do something with some hard lines a little bit more. These are high pressure fuel injection rubber hoses. And then I've got the filter, and I'd like to relocate it because it's a little too close to the exhaust for my liking. And what I did is I just used my high pressure feed line, and I went in here and just tapped right into the high pressure feed line. And so I'm just using my high pressure line, and I'm not using the stock return line at all. I put the fuel filter back by the tank, return line, pressure line, and then I tapped into my high pressure line, and I got 49 psi going right to the front. And then I used the stock fuel fitting and fuel line all the way to the front. And I actually just wound up, I ran it right through the stock filter. So there's actually two fuel filters on here right now. And that way I could use my stock tank. I did not have to modify it anyway. I used the stock fuel pump out of an 88. And I just popped this filter on here. And the only real modification I had to do was putting a sending unit for the fuel gauge onto the 88 assembly. And now I've got 49 psi. I checked it with a pressure gauge. It was a little bit higher than 49. I'm not sure if that's because this fuel pump is larger, or if there might just be sort of a spec or a variance with the regulator, or with the internal regulator. If I have an issue, I'll probably just put a ballast resistor in line if I seem to be getting adverse fuel economy. But it seems to run just fine with this setup, and it was fairly cheap, just the cost of a filter off a 2002 Grand Cherokee with internal pressure regulator. And then I just took the sending unit off of a used Jeep Cherokee pump, and I will transition over to the video where I show you what the sending unit looks like. I've got my two senders here. This is the Cherokee sender, and it goes on the top with a clamping ring style. And then this is my Comanche sender, right here, and the overall height is about the same, but the Comanche goes in the side of the tank and the Cherokee goes in the top. So if you were to take and put a clamping ring or cut the Comanche tank and try to put this sender in, it would be too short. So I'm not sure what fuel pump setup, maybe one off a Wrangler or something that's a little bit taller. And I'm going to show you, this is from a 91 Comanche HO, and this is a 98 Cherokee, and I've got it hooked up here, and this would be an empty tank. I'm reading 270 ohms, and a full tank should be about 33. There we go. So 26 ohms. And on the Comanche one, I've got an empty tank. The spec says 88, this says 101 for an empty tank. And if you've got a 88, 87, it's actually going to be 33 at an empty tank. The HO models, so the 91, 92, are opposite. And if I go up to an empty tank, it should be almost 0. See if I can get it there. Yeah, there, six ohms right there. So 6 ohms at full, roughly 100 at empty. This one was 200 and something at empty and 30 at full. And it would be opposite. So the fuel gauge itself does work with this sender, but being empty, it reads, when it's almost empty, it's only reading like a partial tank. It doesn't read the full sweep. So I'm going to put this sending unit onto the 88 style. So I've got the sender off the 98 here. So this is what the unit looked like. It clipped in on the back. There's a couple little tabs. So what I did is I cut the sender off this, and I made a couple holes that match where these tabs would be. And so this thing just clips right in. And I modify the arm a little bit to clear the fuel sock, and then I'll have a 30 ohm to 240 ohm sender with my original Comanche pump, and be able to use the original Comanche tank. Okay, here it is all finished. Up to the top, and that matches about the top of the tank. So I'll try this out. I believe my gas tank's got about 1/4 of a tank, so we'll see. I'll wind up just putting a gas can in the truck and trying to run it down to empty to see if I got the bottom and everything accurate. So as far as the wiring's concerned, the so I've got my harness here. The Comanche has the fuel pump grounds out on the frame rail, and there's just one feed line, which is this orange one, and then this tan one is for the fuel sending unit. On the 98 Cherokee, they run a feed and a dedicated ground through the bulkhead. I use the regular ground, and then for the sending unit, for the gauge, they use a tan. And then there's another wire, oh, the tan, sorry, which is the blue on the 98. And then there's a return. And the return is just grounded to the PCM, but there's no feedback on it. It's just a return so that everything will be accurate. So all you do is wire the blue wire, which is the 5-volt reference, or the 5-volt, to the tan wire, and then you can use your stock plug on the sending unit. And so you had 4 wires on the fuel pump, and now you've just got 2 going through. One for your power and one for the power on the sending unit or gauge.